Okay, we are live on YouTube. So for those watching, hang out for a minute. We're just going to let things settle down, do a little housekeeping, and then we'll get this meeting started. Okay. Got the link here. I'll post that in the PSF Telegram channel. Okay, we got that. Okay, we can get this started. Welcome, everybody. I am Chris Troutner. I am founder of the Permissionless Software Foundation and FullStack.cash blockchain as a service. Let's go ahead and go around and give a brief introduction for everybody who's joining the meeting today. David, do you want to start?
Sure. David R. Allen, doing some of the business development work for the Permissionless Software Foundation.
Stoyan, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I'm working mostly on the bch-js, maybe for the last several months.
Yeah, just real quick, give like a summary of that library.
It is a friendly way for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said bch-js. I thought you were talking about your NFT library.
No. I will talk about this a little maybe later. I have some news about. Maybe I'm working on something that I want to share.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'll come back around and have you share that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Joey, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hey, I'm Joey. I'm a developer with Bitcoin ABC. Right now, I'm primarily working on CashTab as well as a suite of web components, and that uses the BCH API product from PSF.
Right on. Okay, looks like Daniel's trying to get in here, but he's having some trouble with his internet connection. I will share the agenda for today. All right. This is a technical steering committee meeting. As always, our agendas can be found on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group, under the TSC or Technical Steering Committee repository. And we file all of our agendas as issues. And so if you want to look at past agendas, if you go there, make sure that you remove this is open, and then you can see all of our past agenda items. So today on the agenda, there's I've been pushing a lot of changes to mostly bch-js and one notable change to BCH API. And these are, of course, considered the core software that's maintained by the Permissionless Software Foundation, and then is reflected into the services that is sold by FullStack.cash, and is used by organizations like Bitcoin ABC, and as well as a few other small companies who I'm continuously trying to get to join the technical steering committee so that we can get their input. So let me just go through these real quick, and then if you guys have any questions, we can go into it. But mainly my focus here in presenting these types of updates is just for posterity, so that we have an anchor in the ground, and later on, if someone's like, why was this thing built this way, we can be like, yeah, here's this YouTube video you can go watch that explains it in detail. So let me get rid of a lot of these windows. PR93. So a lot of these changes that I'm going to address today, they are focused on Simple Ledger Protocol and SLP tokens. And the move here is that the cost of running an SLP DB instance is going up exponentially as token transactions increase on the network and as adoption increases of SLP tokens. And so I am gearing, after having taught, I run infrastructure for several companies, and so the onus is on me to figure out how to solve these scaling problems. And so one of the scaling solutions that I am currently exploring is the use of white label SLPDBs, or it's an SLPDB with a white label filter. So it means the indexer ignores everything except the tokens on the whitelist. It'll ignore all other tokens. And by doing that, you put a hard cap on the sort of footprint because it doesn't care about the other SLP tokens in the network. This sort of exponential growth that we're experiencing is no longer an attack vector. And so now all of a sudden the indexer grows linearly. It's much, much smaller depending on how small the whitelist is. And it's way cheaper to run, much more reliable. And so I'm starting to create general purpose functions in Bitcoin, in BCH API and JS, and whitelist functions that just talk to the whitelist SLPDB, so that exchanges, for instance, they're only going to have a small number of tokens that they care about. They certainly do not care about all the tokens in the market. And that's a perfect example, a canonical use case for this whitelist approach, where their costs can be lowered extremely. The reliability of the infrastructure can be greatly improved by taking this approach. So that's what a lot of these code changes are going to revolve around. If you guys have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm just going to be here on my soapbox doing my thing. So there's one change in BCH API. And so when you set it, I don't know if I have a good capture of this code, but essentially it has to do with these environment variables. And that's actually, move some things around here. Yeah, right here, there's let me actually just go to that file. So there is an example shell script for starting BCH API. And for people who are just trying to use BCH API, this is really all you need to know about this, is there are these new, right here, there are these new environment variables where you can set the general purpose, the password for the general purpose SLP DB, and a password for the whitelist SLPDB. And if you are only running one instance of SLPDB, then you would just put the same information in both, like just a general purpose one, and then everything just works. But if you're running a separate whitelisted SLPDB, you can put that right here. And that's really the only thing, the only change made to BCH API, just to be able to point it at a separate SLPDB whitelist instance. Most of the changes this last week had to do with bch-js. And one big change, so again, another like caveat with the SLP indexing is that SLPDB, when you ask it to validate a token transaction for you, it comes back with either true, false, or null. So true is that it's been confirmed that it is valid. False is that it's been converted or confirmed that it is in fact not a token transaction. It's positively confirmed to not be a token transaction, and it is safe to spend as normal Bitcoin Cash. And then null is that SLPDB has not made a judgment. Either it hasn't seen it before and it hasn't processed the transaction, which happens when SLPDB falls behind when there's a lot of congestion on the network, or it just for some other reason it just can't make a ruling on the transaction. And so bch-js, or this is actually reflected in bch API, but bch-js now has this waterfall validate transaction ID call. And what it is it tries to validate a token transaction through a waterfall of validators. So it, first of all, it'll ping the whitelist SLPDB because that's small and fast and light, and that'll come back really quickly. if the token's not in the whitelist, it's going to return null. And then if it gets a null response, it's going to move on to the next validator, which is the general purpose SLPDB. And if the general purpose SLPDB returns null as well, it'll try one last attempt to validate it through SLP API, which is a totally separate program. It's the SLP validate library that JT or James Kramer created, and I just wrapped it in a REST API, and I called it SLP API. And so I've got one running for BCH, I've got one running for ABC, and I've got one running on testnet. It's really slow. What's nice about it is it validates totally independently of SLPDB. It's a totally independent validator, but it's really slow. And so that's why we use it last as like a last resort. And then finally, if waterfall validate TXT tries all three methods and still gets a null, it'll return the null. So anyways, this is sort of a big upgrade to how validation has been done in the past, where you typically only check with one source of truth. This checks with three different sources of truth. So it's much more reliable. You're much less likely to get a null value at the end of this whole thing. And then there's just like this one function to rule them all. And then if you want to, for most applications, that's enough. And then for people like Joey or me who worry about the nitty-gritty details of infrastructure, then we can start to optimize within this call of how we want the code paths to flow. And then there's these other functions, primarily token UTXO details. I added this sort of WL for whitelist. So it's the same, this function's heavily used right now, but this other function, you can just, by attaching WL, you'll specifically call the whitelist SLPDB, and you'll ignore the other SLPDB instances for like a use case like an exchange where they just want to use their whitelist and it wants to be fast and reliable, and they're not interested in the general population of SLP tokens. And then that's also reflected here in this hydrate UTXO method, which is the same function, just the heavy lifting happens on the server. And I'm just going to go over these really fast, because if anybody wants more details, you can ask me. I also have links to the documentation that explains this in more detail. There's the waterfall. I feel like I'm missing something. Like there should be something here that I didn't add. Yeah, anyways, this new paradigm of using whitelisted SLPDBs or general purpose SLPDBs, and depending on the use case, it's pretty clear which is the better one to use. And I expect this to be a trend of the whitelist stuff. The other big notable change here is UTXO get. This is a new class. So in addition to all this SLP work, I've been pulling in, there's a BCH util JavaScript library. I've deprecated that and pulled that in. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I also created a UTXO class, and this get call is pretty cool. This is based on feedback that I've gotten from other wallet developers in the area. Just having to try and deal with UTXOs, and particularly with the increase in NFTs, because those are handled differently. So when you make a call to this UTXO.class like .get function, you pass it an address, and I haven't heavily tested it, but you can pass in up to 20 addresses at a time, and it will return. It'll return make this bigger. It'll return an object that looks like this. So there will be an address property, which is the address that you requested. And that's handy if you pass in 20 addresses at a time, you know specifically which address this object is dealing with. It gives you an array of all the Bitcoin Cash UTXOs. So these are confirmed false, so they're confirmed to be Bitcoin Cash transactions and safe to spend. And then there's going to be this null array, which any UTXO that comes back and fails that waterfall validation, that'll end up in this null array. So for wallet developers, they can just basically safely ignore the null array. Anything that lands in that array you can just ignore it, and that way you can be sure that you're not accidentally spending a UTXO that could be an SLP UTXO. So it's sort of like this exception bucket. It's like things shouldn't be an exception. They shouldn't land in this bucket, but the real life is messy. And so when that happens, that's where they're going to go. And so that's sort of the idea there. And then the SLP UTXOs is returned as an object. And inside that object is two other objects, type 1 and NFT. So if normal tokens, normal SLP tokens are type 1. And so they come back, and then those are further separated into tokens and minting batons. Because one of the things that a wallet needs to be careful about is not burning a minting baton. And so if you're just trying to build a wallet that is supportive of tokens, that token array is what you want to focus on. And if you are building a wallet that you want it to be token aware, but you don't necessarily care about tokens, you're not ready to support tokens, what's nice about this call is like you can just focus on this BCH UTXOs array, and you know that you're not going to burn any tokens that might have been coming along for the ride. So this is a really convenient call for wallet developers. This is the main focus of this thing. And then finally, there's an NFT property, and so there's group tokens, and then regular NFT tokens, and then the minting baton for creating group tokens. And so those each get their own array. And Stoyan, you've done a little more work around NFTs than I have. Does this look like, do you see any problems with this architecture? Or does this look right to you?
Yeah, I want to talk more on this topic, maybe after this, when you finish your resume on because let's see, my talk will be maybe a little long. I'm not sure. So
yeah, I'll wrap this up pretty quickly.
It will be specifically on this topic, so remember.
Okay.
Gecko and NFTs.
Okay, that sounds good. Anyway, so that's the get call. That's where it is now. It's been in flux for the last couple of weeks. I'm still actively trying to solicit input from wallet developers on how it could be better. And the last thing to note here in the agenda is this BCH util library. It's an NPM library. I haven't officially deprecated it yet, but I will. And it had these just sort of useful functions that I found myself using all the time when writing applications using Bitcoin Cash, like chunking up an array into chunks of 20 elements, so an array of arrays, and rounding to like 2 decimal places or 8 decimal places, and then always rounding down, so a floor, so that because sometimes bad things happen if you round up, and then finding the biggest UTXO in an array of UTXOs. That's a super common thing. That's like the simplest way to find a UTXO to spend. So I've moved all those functions into bch-js. The UTXO specific ones are going into the UTXO class, and the rest of them are going into the util class. So if you go to the bch-js documentation at bch-js.fullstack.cache, you can scroll down the bottom. There's the UTXO class, which is new, and the util class, which has just been expanded with all these functions I just mentioned. So that's the main gist. Those are the updates that happened in the last couple weeks. So Joey, if any of this looks tasty to you, I know like it's a pain. I'm kind of going back and refactoring some things like in minimal SLP wallet, and to take advantage of some of these new functions, particularly with the waterfall validation method. That's a really powerful way. And I'm personally not using the UTXO get method very much yet, but I'm going to actively try to use it just because it's just this really nice one high level function that gives you everything you need.
It looks cool. I just need to get around to implementing it. So, yeah. But it's nice to see like there's always improvements that are possible, and PSF's definitely always on it.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, any feedback is appreciated. That's that, Stoyan. Let's go into what you got.
Okay, so first, just to mention, your announcement on Twitter is about the get call, but version 4.12. But the documentation is about 4.13. It's completely changed.
Yeah, it
So
has completely
maybe
changed.
I first so what is the story? If you remember, we talked about trying to add NFT like goodies to the wallet, full stack wallet. So I decided to start working on this when I
Oh,
have
okay.
time. So I first get the starter, this BSH Gatsby starter, and I figured that it maybe will be more clever to first modify the minimal SLP wallet web.
Oh,
If I
okay.
have all of these NFTs inside, I can just after this add the GUI to it. So I create a new branch in this minimal wallet, and I create a new list separate file. Nowadays, the token file, which is working with the current 3 version of the bch-js, the old one. So I create a separate file named nft.js, and I try this new get call because it sounds pretty cool. So I already have the list NFT function, which is just listing this NFT like section. I also have a list group function, which is listing only the group tokens. And I hit a little, how to see, not wall, but a little problem when I'm trying to get children of some NFT group.
And yeah, good. I'm glad you brought this up because this is something I've been wondering about too. Like if you have a child, you want to find the group, the parent.
Yes. In the SLP-JS library, this the James Kramer one, inside the group section, there is a little array with only the transaction ID of the children mentioned. No other information, just a short array. And when you have this array, you can, after this, from the token section, you can get more information, like document IDs and everything. So if you in some way add to the every group a small array with the child transactions ID, will be very convenient.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk through this because I have had similar thoughts and I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Here in the get call, so in the example here is an example of a return.
Yeah. So if you go a little down to the group.
Yeah, so here's the NFT, here's the mint batons, here's the group token.
Yeah, and if you have inside this group token like children,
like a children array,
array, and you put there only the TX hashes on the children for this group, nothing else. So it will not make the return data too big. So for the wallet implementations, they will get first this array, and after this, they can get from the tokens section that you have below, they can get more information for the specific child.
Right. Yeah. So I'm wondering should I have, I mean, maybe the answer is both. But I'm wondering if, because I think when I'm calling the hydrate UTXO method to get this information on an NFT token, I'm pretty sure I can do one more step to find the parent. But when I'm doing the same thing on the parent, I'm not sure if there's an easy way to find all the children. Maybe there is. I'm not sure.
In all my project until now, I was doing a code directly to the SLPDB database with the group ID, and it was returning me all the children for this group.
There we go. We go. Okay, so I'll work with you on that because it sounds like that's the solution there.
I was not sure because in fact, it cannot. You can go without this, but I was not sure how to to use Axios or something else to make calls when I have this minimal wallet already, how to see, not compiled, but make
Yeah.
by Browsify, Tinify, make
Yeah.
one file. Will be the Axios Insight or no?
There is. You kind of have to. It's not obvious. You have to know sort of how the code's laid out. But so I know if you bring in, so if you instantiate minimal SLP wallet, the bch-js library is encapsulated in it. So you can make any call with that, and then Axios is I think in every main class, so you could call any class within bch-js
because
and access its Axios library.
In this case, maybe there's no need even to change the current format. It's very simple. You just create one JSON file with the SLPDB request, send it, and it return you back all information for the children for this group.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking in terms of the stack, and so I think just based on what we've just talked about, I think my approach would be to add a new BCH API REST call that makes that query to SLPDB to get the children for a group token.
Yeah, this will be great because it's very simple. It just REST call.
Yeah, and then once we have that call, then we can push it up the stack and we can get it into bch-js and make a nice convenient call for that, and then we can integrate it into this get call so that information just comes along for the
maybe
ride.
Even not put it inside the get call, it will become too complicated. Maybe get children call, or I don't know. So it can be separate. No need, because some of the people will not be interested to have this all information inside.
Right. Well, if there's no like NFT tokens at that address, then the call wouldn't get made, so it wouldn't be inefficient in that regard. It would only get called if it turns out that there's NFT tokens at that address that and then they do need to make the call. But let's start with I'll work with you this week to get more information on that SLPDB query, and then I can create a new REST API endpoint for making that query. And then I think that's the next step for this. And then we can figure out what the next steps are after that.
So yeah, if we have this inside this minimal web wallet, it will be very convenient because it can made it to many other wallets, not only fullstack.cash one, Gatsby one.
Definitely.
It can go to this command line SLP wallet and in the examples.
Yeah. That's the thing. So as we're discovering better ways to process SLP token data, like once we get this sort of nailed down, then the next step is to update minimal SLP wallet and SLP CLI wallet to start using this new functionality. I took a little bit of a look at minimal SLP wallet this week, trying to add this new functionality, and it's just it's not going to be as easy as I'd like it to be, but we'll get it.
This was my working this week. So
this is valuable feedback, and dude, definitely if you want to do a tighter iteration, I'm happy to ping me, because I mean your mornings are my evening, and just let me know what you're working on this stuff, and that way I don't want you to spend a bunch of time on something that might need to be refactored in order to get it into the mainline code, because your thoughts are really valuable, and I just want to make sure we're
it was still not it was still tries. So I will coordinate with you when I decide to make some serious stuff.
Cool. Oh, that's really valuable feedback, Stoyan. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I knew we were missing something there, because Pooker said something about this, and I was like, oh, and then I tried to get clarification, and then he walked it back. So I was like, okay. And like I said, you've done a lot more work with NFTs than I have. This is good. This is exactly the kind of feedback that I was hoping to get. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense for the group tokens to point at the children, and then probably the children to point back to the parents in this information.
Yeah, it will be good to have this connection. It become very easy to.
And then
implement wallets.
Yeah, that's sort of critical information for your idea around not the last hackathon, but the hackathon before. You were working on this decentralized name server service, and it was all based on the connection between parents and children, right?
Yeah, I use it also on this next one, hackathon. I created a REST API and the NFT viewer. So in fact, the Gatsby part is pretty much ready. I have
Cool.
a React. I created a REST API, very simple one, which was doing this queries to SLPDB. And it was like just get tokens and put tokens to create NFTs even, not only get the information.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and I have the two components, React components. One was the NFT viewer, which will be very easy maybe to change and become one of the cards inside the wallet.
Cool.
It's getting this information and visualize it. And the
yeah.
other one was NFT creator, which can be different application, which need to do some additional stuff like updating maybe image to the IPFS if you want to have this information.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought this up because I know, like, I'm really impressed with your coding style on the backend software, but I didn't realize that you were comfortable working with Gatsby. That's awesome.
Yeah. My company daily work is JavaScript, so I don't like it so much. But
do you do front end stuff, or do you do mostly back end stuff? For work.
Recently, don't like it, but work mostly front end.
Oh, but, okay.
Yeah, but my passion is back end.
Okay. So, yeah, ditto. Like I'm the same way. I can do front end, but it's just not what resonates with me.
Yeah. So the React was Gatsby is React. So this NFT viewer is almost ready. It needs
very cool
tweaking.
Very cool. Very cool, man. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take this offline. I definitely want to see what you got, and well, let's get working on that SLPDB query. That would be a great thing to have. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, that is pretty much the agenda. Is there anything else that we want to talk about? Joey, you got anything on your mind? No?
No, just the usual. Digging through all the crypto stuff.
Yeah.
Show us some browser extension.
So yeah, well, when you're ready, Joey. Yeah, I'd love to just dedicate one of these meetings to have you do a walk, like a technical walkthrough of like, this is the browser, like not just the browser extension, but like that React component library, like
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, next meeting, if there's not anything else coming up, I'm happy to. Thanks.
Perfect. How about you, David? How you doing? You're muted. But I was reading your lips, and it sounds like you're okay.
Yeah, way over my head most of it, but I'm happy to start learning some JS.
Cool. Well, on a related technical note, we had our first voting token airdrop last Thursday, and the voting for the current proposal will be counted on next Thursday. So next Wednesday will be our community committee meeting, and we'll just kind of check in and see how we're doing. From a technical standpoint, the voting stuff is working really well. The airdrop worked really well. The tallying is working really well. Calculating the merit is working really well. So I think we've got a good, from a coding standpoint, we've got a good foundation for doing these types of airdrops and votes. My plan on the next ComCom meeting is to talk more like qualitatively about the process and how we all feel about it. We feel that it's fair and things we can do to improve it. So But from a technical standpoint, this whole airdrop voting token thing's really coming together and working well. And I've got code I can share with anybody who's interested. Okay, well, I think I'll wrap this up. You guys, really appreciate you attending. Yeah, good meeting. I'll see you guys online in Telegram.